Hello and welcome to the two-man power trip of wrestling. I am your host, JP John Paz, and with me today, special guest. You may know him as the intern from the Russo brand. Of course, he's from the Juke Pod and BLV. He is none other than Mitchell Milani. Mitch, welcome into the two-man power trip.
Thanks for having me on, John. Looking forward to this conversation. I know that we're going to talk about a lot, whether it's football, sports, or wrestling or whatever. So I've listened to your show. I've actually edited a couple of your shows, so I'm a fan myself.
Nice. Awesome. Thank you for editing. Appreciate that.
No
Nice.
problem.
Good stuff. But what's going on? What are you up to? I know you're keeping very, very busy with BLV and doing stuff with Dr. Jen Welter. I mean, you're keeping pretty damn busy over there.
Yeah, John, right now in my life, it's kind of like a transitional phase for me because I'm just kind of getting out of school now. I'm trying to figure out what I want to do with my life, sort of thing. So, of course, we have the brand and the Realm Network moving forward, which will be fun. And also my own ventures with the Bottom Line View, the Juke Pod. So, yeah, 3 or 4 different things that I'm juggling, trying to find the best way to go about it.
You're like Tony Khan over there. You got 4 different things
Yeah,
going on, and you have to have time management. You got to be able to
hopefully I'm
balance.
better at those things than him. I'm just gonna say that much.
With obviously school and stuff. Where did you go to school? I mean, you're a pretty young guy. You're fresh out. Where'd you go?
Ryerson University in Toronto. So it's a sports media program in Toronto. So that's specifically the program I took, and very fun, very good program. Recommend it to anybody looking to get into sports media or media in general.
Is that how you got hooked up with Vince Russo?
Yeah, so through an internship, I was a fan of the brand, so I was listening to it the whole time. I was like, Vince seems like a good guy to learn from. Obviously, with his experiences, he's a creative guy. It felt like I didn't know him, but it felt like he was a pretty personable guy and maybe boss as well. So I was like, maybe I'll reach out to Vince and see like if he has a spot for me, if I can do anything, and that's just how it went about. It was through an internship program at Ryerson.
So he contacted you. You contacted him.
I emailed him and I was like, do you have an internship? And he kind of said, we don't really do that, but like maybe we could work something out. And it took quite a while. Like I had to go back and forth. I wasn't sure if I was going to get it because at the same time, I was actually getting the Juke started as well. And that was going to be like an internship. That's what initially was going to be, but it turned into something else. So I kept hitting up Vince every once in a while, every few weeks. So after a month or two, eventually it just worked itself out. We got on Skype and then we got started.
With him, what'd you think? Like, you first meeting him, did you think like, oh, he is nice, he's personable, or
Yeah.
who is this guy from New York? Who does this guy think he is?
No, I mean, he kind of lived up to everything I thought he was going to be in terms of like the person that he is on the shows. He's pretty much the same person. And that's nice to see because I think he doesn't really get the right, I guess, whole deal in terms of the way people look at him from his wrestling days. But I do think he's a great guy and glad to be on the brand now.
So, what was the role initially? Like, castrating the marks, and obviously, you added
Yeah,
so much. Like, what was the initial kind of role when you first
it
got
was
brought
kind
on?
of like everything, like because I was an intern, so I was do whatever sort of to help. But it started with like putting out tweets and then learning how to do that for every show. Jeff would go over some things with me. Then I would be editing a few clips and shows on YouTube, and then doing thumbnails and things on YouTube. Then going on castrating the marks, sort of. It started as a sit-in. Like I never knew I was actually gonna get on the show or be on the show at all, but it just was like come and see how we do this sort of thing, and that's kind of where it went. But that's how it started, kind of doing a little bit of small things, and then once they saw I could handle more, they just gave me more.
Now, the internship is over. Are you fully on board? Are you fully a part of the brand?
Fully a part of the brand and planning on having some of my own shows as well, so that's pretty exciting in the NFL space, so that's going to be good.
Got to mention this though. You got some heat. I don't know why,
I don't know
but
why.
yeah, why? What happened there?
John, what's up with that? I don't even talk to any of these people. Like, how do they know me? I don't know.
I guess they were listening to Castrating the Marks, and you popped on. They're probably like, "Who is this guy, Mitch the Inter? Who the hell?" Why the heat? Where did that come from? What the hell's going on with these guys?
I don't want to say it, but I'll say it anyway. I think it might be jealousy. I don't know, John. You can sort it out for yourself, but that's kind of the feeling that I get personally is maybe jealousy. They thought they should have that spot. Like, honestly, whatever. I deal with that on my own YouTube channel anyways. I get a bunch of hater comments, but hopefully it's not real haters out there. Hopefully it's just kind of for fun, and that's what I've been treating it as, but I don't know.
Hey, Howard Stern used to get hate listeners all the time, and
Right.
guys like that, and I miss and stuff. People are like, oh, I hate this guy, but they listen to him. So as long as they're listening, as long as they're using their ears, that's kind of a good thing. And in a weird way, it might be a good thing.
Very true. Yeah, I agree.
I just love that Vince plays it up too, because Mike Durbin, who big
Yeah.
part of the brand, or he does a lot of different things, but he's a big brand member, Russo fan, and he does a show with Vince once in a while. Venom Vinyl. I just thought it was funny that Russo brings it up on air, and then he makes you apologize to it. Just a little comedy thrown in there too. I just thought that was
Yeah,
hilarious.
it's
I was like,
good.
oh,
It's
so
good.
funny.
I mean, I play it up too. I try to at least, try to make it entertaining for the show's sake. So, sorry, Mike. I apologize.
Yeah, I was gonna
But
say you have to apologize.
Vince, like, yeah, he actually said to me that Mike doesn't listen or watch the show anymore. So I don't know if that was because of me or what that was, but it's funny though.
Vince loves him though. You gotta apologize. Vince wants you to
Sorry,
apologize to
Mike.
him, I guess. I love that he pops in. Sorry, Mike. Yep, yep. So with castrating the marks, were you ever familiar with Meltzer, Keller, all those guys beforehand, or is that literally from being on that show it made you familiar with those guys?
Well, like I said, I was a fan of the brand before, so I knew of them at least from when they started castrating the marks. I think the only one I may have heard of was Dave Meltzer, because I was a big wrestling fan, but I wasn't really in the, I guess you would call it the dirt sheet space, or like looking at that sort of stuff. And then I kind of came across like Wade Keller and things through interviews and stuff like that. But I didn't really know who Wade Keller was per se. So I knew of them but didn't really know them, if that makes sense.
Yep, I gotcha. You like the format of the show? You think that's pretty funny?
Oh,
Basically, kind of, it's not even going against them. It's playing what they've said or reading tweets or something, and just kind of commenting on what they've said. It's not us or Vince or whoever burying them. It's almost them burying themselves to a certain extent.
yeah, it's a phenomenal concept. I think it's one of the best podcasts out of, I listen to a lot of podcasts, I make a lot of podcasts. It's one of the best podcasts out there. Like, if you're not listening to it, I highly recommend it, because like you said, it's all organic content. It's not like somebody's writing this out being like, this is what Wade Keller's going to say this week. They're legitimately saying this stuff. Like, this is real, but also it's just unbelievable sometimes. And I think it's just a good mix of, you got the audio, you got the tweets, you got everything in the realm of wrestling, and it just puts together into it's a comedy show. I think even wrestling fans can enjoy it.
You don't necessarily have to know who those guys are
Exactly.
to enjoy it. And sometimes, even like Keller, for instance, is trying to be entertaining. He's trying to be funny, but it just maybe it misses the mark or something. So
Yeah.
it's not even like being mean spirited to me. I know some people say it is being mean spirited, but to me, it's not. It's very comedy. It's very parody. It's making a joke out of the guys.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what Vince and Jeff are going for. I mean, sometimes I think it gets a little like just so unbelievable for those two guys that sometimes they do take their shots. I'm not going to lie, like sometimes you do hear it come out, but I mean, it's just a very entertaining show. I think the thing about it too is that all this time, all the episodes they've put together, they have become characters. Like, you can outline, this is Dave Meltzer, this is that character, this is Wade Keller, like almost like they've become their own character on a TV show. So that's absolutely hilarious.
Wade does some pretty good impersonations. He
Oh
misses the
yes.
mark on a couple of them, but he does a couple of pretty good ones. Undertaker, Braun Strowman, he's got some good ones.
I'm waiting for the day that he actually nails one, and the reaction of Vince when he actually nails a impression. I think that's going to be great.
Vince would be like, "Oh my god, that was actually pretty good. You got to give him some credit."
Who's your favorite character on castrating the marks?
As far as when Wade does it,
No, in terms of every person on there, like
oh,
to listen to the clips or something.
it got to be. Even though I really like him and I know him personally and I like him, but Meltzer, because some of the stuff he says is just, I don't know, it's like completely outlandish. Because it's almost, if you really kind of read some of his stuff, and I have books of his and
Yeah.
observers and stuff, and some of the stuff is like really good and really well written, and then you listen to him talk sometimes, you're like, is that the same guy? It's just like, I don't know, he almost gets into like the wrestling bubble, really, in the fantasy world, and he kind of loses himself a little bit. But some of the stuff that he comes out with, like that Dennis Miller story, oh my god, that's one of the, hey, you never heard the Dennis Miller, and his voice cracks, never heard the Dennis Miller story? Oh, he's the best. You like Dave the best, or you like somebody else?
I think Dave is the constant. Like, he is the main character in a way. Like, every week, you know you're going to get good Dave Meltzer. Whatever it is, tweets, audio, just the comedy is going to be on point from him. But I think the two best stories for me for Dave Meltzer are the Hot Topic story. That one is, I can't, like, I can't get over that one. And the banana story with his ex-girlfriend, that
Oh
one is
yes,
also phenomenal too.
yes,
But
yes.
yeah, Dennis Miller is great too. And then I don't know, I don't really find Wade that funny. I kind of find him more like, I'm not trying to be mean, but like kind of irritating in a way where it becomes like comedy because of the way that Vince and Jeff react to what he says. I think that's more the comedy. Dave is more funny in himself. And then I think Bruce Mitchell is just outlandish. He's phenomenal.
I love that clip where the doorbell goes off. I guess like, maybe he records close to the front door, but oh, that's so funny. It's like in Continental, like ding dong.
Yeah. It's great.
All those guys, though, in their own way, you're right, have like their own unique personality and have little things that either can work for them or against them. Like when Keller starts cutting promos and stuff, and I know that guy doesn't do them anymore. I guess he got in trouble. But man, when they matched up the guy's video, like say Stephanie, and then he's cutting the promo of Stephanie, that was genius stuff. That was awesome.
So do you know all of them?
Yes.
So what is it like to actually listen to the show, watch the show, and then know who they are?
It is, in some ways, it's kind of funny because it's almost like two different worlds. It's like, this is the serious them, and then here's like the side of them. Because like part of them is like, not mad, but just like, oh, don't make fun of me for something I've said. But it's so ridiculous, you almost have to laugh at yourself, and I don't think they get that part of it. Like sometimes, like if I say something stupid, like, oh, I just gotta laugh that off, that was stupid, or that was a mistake or something, or oh man, that was a really bad impersonation. These guys, for some reason, they're so serious about it, and wrestling's so serious to them, they can't decipher, they can't take it into two different worlds. But I just kind of split it down the middle. I'm like, I take them seriously over here, but when I have to listen to some of the silly shit they say, I gotta move them into this hilarious category here where they're just being outlandish.
Yeah, you could just say, hey man, you're a funny guy.
Yeah, Dave, Meltzer, you got an awesome personality that we didn't really know about because you're talking about, El Santo and all this serious stuff.
He should use that on the show more.
I agree.
Right?
I agree. And Alvarez, who's really, if you know him, he's very sarcastic, so he'll get Meltzer sometimes too. And be like, really, Dave? That's really what happened?
Yeah, that comes out on the show. Yeah. For sure.
The Costco story is pretty funny too.
Oh, yeah. That's a new classic.
Yeah, like he's wearing the mask, but the person noticed. So to see some of the stuff he says, you cannot take like seriously. Like it's hilarious, but he would probably never agree with that. But kind of just moving gears, you kind of were saying about the brand and maybe bringing some shows. What kind of shows? Are we talking about football related shows?
Yeah, I mean, I have other ideas too. I won't give that away because nothing's like set in stone or anything. But like, I think the idea is for me to do probably an NFL show, maybe a fantasy football type show, and that will be a part of the brand because the brand's looking to expand into different categories of entertainment beyond wrestling. So I think I'll play a part in terms of the sports stuff.
Nice. And I see you've been doing the top 30, right? You've been ranking the quarterbacks, the running backs, and receivers. How's that going? Are you seeing some success from the rankings? Because people love that stuff.
Yeah, people love rankings. They love to rather just most of the time they like to hate on you and hate on your opinion, which is totally cool. Like I get it and I love it. But yeah, every video is fun and just to see the reaction. Like some people will be like, I loved your quarterback rankings here, but I didn't like your running back rankings, but I agree with your wide receiver rankings. And then I wish this player was higher, but this player was lower. So, I mean, it just starts conversation. That's what it's all about when you're creating a content or a video is you want to create conversation for your subscribers or whoever, a new viewer to talk about.
Create some debate, right? It's like,
Yeah.
okay, Rodgers is number one, Mahomes, you kind of go back and forth a little bit, create a little bit of debate with the person.
Yeah, exactly. That's what it's all about. I also like doing it. I mean, I've been doing rankings way before I had a channel or a platform. So like for me it's fun. I just like thinking about this and throughout the season you kind of have in your mind like, oh, this guy I think is like number 2 or 3. Like maybe he's jumped in the top 5. Like the interesting thing is that Josh Allen had a breakout season. Like where do I actually rank him this year? That sort of thing.
So who is the top 5 quarterbacks in the
Top
rankings?
5 quarterbacks. So top 5 quarterbacks, I have Patrick Mahomes, Aaron Rodgers, Josh Allen, Tom Brady, and Russell Wilson. Those were my top 5.
Sounds about right. In that order, or did
It
in
was
that?
in that order, yeah. So the one that I was contemplating both number 1, number 2, and then I was contemplating number 3, number 4, and then Wilson was pretty secure at number 5. I didn't include Deshaun Watson either, so for anyone wondering.
What's going on with him? What's the latest? Is he going to play? Is he in trouble? What's going on?
I doubt he's going to play. I'll just say that.
Man, how many people or women came out against him? That was a lot because there was
Yeah.
rumors that, oh, he's going to be traded, and all of a sudden, well, he can't be traded anymore because of all this backlash.
Yeah, too many to count. So when that amount comes out, I think I just try to stay away, as far away as possible, remove them from the conversation, and just talk about football. That's what I want to do. I don't want to get into that mess, to be honest.
What about Jeff Lane's boy, Josh Allen? Do you think he's going to be better this year? Because he had a great year last year,
Yeah.
but then in the playoffs against the Chiefs, he kind of went back to same old Josh Allen. Is he going to get over that hump this year, or are we going to see that same old Josh?
It's tough to say that he'll get over the hump because he was so good, like you said last year. He was like borderline MVP level. Like I think it
Yeah.
was Rodgers, then it was Allen. So it's tough for him to get better. Obviously, he's young and he'll improve. I think he'll improve aspects to his game. Maybe he won't be in that like true MVP. Maybe he will. But I just have always been a Josh Allen guy, like ever since he was coming out of the draft, which is kind of opposite to a lot of other people. But when you watched him coming out of college, the physical gifts just they are just insurmountable. They're ridiculous. I mean, I've never seen a guy throw the ball as hard as him, as fast as him. And then you combine that with the size and the speed and the rushing ability. It's just like now that he's fixed his mechanics and accuracy issues that he's had, I don't think there's anything stopping him from maintaining top 5 level of play for the next 10 years.
Why didn't the Giants draft? I'm a big Giants fan. Why didn't they draft him when they had the opportunity? I know they were saying, "Oh, you're going to draft this guy and this quarterback." I think they went with Saquon that
They
year, but
went
it
with
was like
Saquon, yeah.
they needed like a quarterback. They needed like I don't know. To me, I was like, man, I would have went after him of all the guys because he had the best upside to me in
Yeah.
that draft.
Yeah, I would have drafted him first.
Yeah,
Cleveland,
or
Cleveland,
Cleveland could have drafted him.
Cleveland
Yeah,
drafted Baker. I guess Baker was sort of like the safest out of all the quarterbacks, but because he had enough like physical upside when you watch Baker, like he's got a good arm and all that stuff, he can move around, but he also like had proven it at the college level versus good opponents. So I get the Baker pick. Obviously, I was more of an Allen and actually Lamar guy as well, which just so happens I was right about that, but I'm not always right. But yeah, Josh Allen, I would have picked him if I was the Giants because, like I said, I would have picked him first. So if I was the GM of the team, I would have picked Allen. But I mean, Saquon, like, he was looked at as a generational running back. I still think he is. The only issue with him is he's been hurt. I think he's
yep.
phenomenal. So it's tough. In the running back position, that's the whole debate today is, like, it's not very valuable, especially in comparison to the quarterback position. So I don't think since then, and I don't think there will be in the next few years, like a running back that goes that high in the draft.
to me, and the Giants should have learned their lesson from about 14 years earlier. So they had Tiki. He's the whole
Yeah.
team. He's the best, one of the best running backs in the league, probably top five.
Hmm.
Then he leaves. Oh, then we're a more well-rounded team all around. We win the Super Bowl the next freaking year.
That's
I
right.
don't know. You think that they would be above that, thinking like, okay, we don't need that great generational running back. We need to surround the team with good players, get a good quarterback who's solid, and then we can have a whole kind of a wide range of a team here. I don't know. To me, I was like, man, I like the Saquon pick, kinda, and then I was like, man, it just you didn't need that one good player. You need a bunch of good players, and you need a quarterback first and foremost. And Daniel Jones, not the guy.
Not a Daniel Jones guy. I think that's the interesting thing to me is that was it the year after or 2 years after, right? They picked Daniel Jones. I
Yeah,
think
the
it was
year
the
after, yeah,
year after.
way
So,
early too, sixth pick.
right. And Daniel Jones was like, for a lot of people, like picked way too early, like you said, or people didn't consider him like a consensus top 10 pick for sure. So when you looked at the draft class before and then you compared it to the draft class after, like you said, it was a bad pick to pick Saquon, not because he's not a great player, but because when you looked at that draft the year before, you could have picked, right? You could have picked Mayfield, Allen, and you could have picked Lamar and even Darnold. The only one that really would have stunk was Rosen.
Yep.
Right? So you could have hit on four, and I would argue that even if you got Darnold, who's been the worst of the four, he's nearly around the same level as Daniel Jones, right?
Right. Right.
So like
Yeah.
you could have picked your poison out of those four quarterbacks, and you probably would have been right. So, and it's not necessarily hard to find a running back. So, yeah, I don't know, man.
And it's funny too that Daniel Jones year is like, okay, they needed defense, and
Yeah.
they didn't get any. Like you got Daniel Jones. I don't know, it was just bad all
Maybe
around.
it
And
was
then
Eli, like because they still had Eli, right? Maybe they're still trying to give Eli a chance. I don't know, but I felt like Eli was already kind of done at that point too. So, what'd you think about that?
I feel like he was done at that point. The team around him sucked. Maybe if you surrounded him with the defense that they had last year and you had Eli as quarterback, I think they would have
Mhm.
been a lot better because I don't know, he would have stepped up his game and wouldn't have had as many turnovers, I don't think, as Daniel Jones, who's like the turnover king. Anytime you think that he's not going to turn the ball over, he does. He just fumble, interception, he just too much. I think Eli would have had better control of the ball because he went through that years earlier where he was turning over the ball like crazy. But
Yeah.
if he had a good defense, I think that they would have been better. Hell, even when Colt McCoy was playing for those few weeks, they played better because at least he didn't turn over the ball. They beat the Seahawks to be 17-6 or something, but at least he didn't turn it over.
Yeah, I don't know. Like Daniel Jones, I think has a lot of talent. Like I'll watch games where he has big time throws down the field. He makes great plays and with his legs as well, where he's capable of breaking a big play. But like you said, it's mostly the mental thing. Like I think he holds on to the ball too long. Not great under pressure. I hopefully this is the year where he can prove himself. Like this is the year for him. It's rather he's gonna make it or it's gonna break it with adding Kenny Galladay and Kadarius Toney and all these
Yeah.
guys that they've added. The offensive line still needs a bit of work, in my opinion, but like this team right now, if Daniel Jones plays well, they'll make the playoffs. That's what I believe. But if he plays the way that he has been playing, they're an average team.
Yep, which is crazy because the one position that you need is the quarterback, and that's the one that's like questionable, and the line too, obviously, but it's questionable.
Yeah.
They have so many talent on the defensive side and the offensive side at key
Mhm.
positions. It's crazy. They're loaded right now. Gettleman did a great job with getting good defense after having a couple bad drafts. Daniel Jones, Thomas, the left tackle they drafted, who literally was the fourth best tackle in the draft. Hell, if you look over at the next town, or in the same town, if you look over at the Jets,
Yeah, Becton.
that guy Becton is a friggin' beast. I would have picked him easily. Oh, but he has weight problems. Yeah, get him not to have weight problems. The
Tristan
guy's a
Wirfs was
monster.
phenomenal.
Wirfs, another guy. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, that's just tough. I mean, Thomas, I think the guy that went to Cleveland, Wills, I think,
Mhm.
he was like probably projected for most people number one. He was like the third best. So it's kind of funny how that worked out. I think it's almost like reverse order of how they were drafted is how they ended up so far. But we'll see. I'm willing to give. You also have to take into account with Thomas, like the rest of the line wasn't very good, so it's not really helping him.
Yeah, Will Hernandez somehow he was supposed to be great. He's been horrible. But if just eye test, look at that guy back then. You're like, okay,
Yeah, he's a
this guy
beast.
is a monster. Like even for NFL level, he is a monster amongst everybody there. He's just
Yeah.
a beast. Just literally put him in left tackle. Who cares if Will Hernandez has a shitty year? This guy can kind of cover both positions a little bit. Just I was like, man, why is Gettleman keep missing on the offensive end with these guys? Damn it.
Yeah. I mean, he's always been a guy too, like offense. This is why I was surprised he didn't go like offensive line this year or edge rusher, because he's usually been like a defensive line, offensive line guy, especially back in his days with the Panthers. That's kind of always been his identity. He's somewhat gotten away with that with a couple skill position picks, which aren't really in his, I think, house of like knowledge. And then, of course, he had to go with the quarterback. That's understandable. But yeah, I think he's built a pretty good team for the coach right now in Joe Judge, who I'm a believer in. I think Joe Judge is a good coach, and I think he's built the correct type of defense that they want to run there, which is very similar to my team, the Patriots. And it all comes down to me, like, yes, they could improve the offensive line. That's the one unit I think they could improve, along with maybe a pass rusher or two that would help. But it comes down to Daniel Jones. Like, at some point, you got to prove yourself. This is the year to prove yourself. If not, I think this is what he's done really well. They now have a couple first-round picks that they can go next year. They can move up in the draft, grab a quarterback, or they can stay where they're at and grab a quarterback. So I don't think they're really in a bad spot either way, even if Daniel Jones isn't good.
True. You mentioned the Patriots. Got to
Yeah.
talk about them for a second. Horrible last year, even though the record wasn't that bad. They were just a bad team. Belichick still there, spends the most money in free agency history. Now he's going to kind of right the wrong and right the ship. But can they go anywhere with Cam Newton as the starting QB?
A lot of people hate on Cam, especially Patriots fans. So you would be surprised. But I like Cam. I've always liked Cam. I'm a Cam guy. And I think he didn't really get a fair shot last year, in my opinion, because first, right, he had a shortened offseason in the most complex offense in the league, coming off of Tom Brady in 20 years in the system. You had the worst skill position talent I've ever seen in my life. I mean,
Yes.
these guys weren't NFL players. Like,
Yes.
we're running out there. No tight end to speak of. Like, last in production, now they've added Jonnu Smith and Hunter Henry, who are both
Yeah.
great players.
Excellent.
Now you have receivers there who actually are NFL players, like Nelson Aguilar and Kendrick Bourne, who they also added. He seems to have rapport with Jacoby Myers, who kind of came out of nowhere.
Yep.
So just overall, the weapons around Cam are much, much better. The offensive line's already good, and I think they're one of the better ones in the league, along with the run game, which I think Cam makes better in his own right because he is a runner himself. Now, Cam had his own issues. I think the COVID thing kind of started it because he got behind the eight ball in terms of kind of preparing for games and recognition of the offense, and I think that hurt him. But his mechanics started to get away from him as well. We saw games last year where he was really, really, really good. You know, the Seattle game, the Texans game, the Jets game. There was a few games that you watched him and you were like, wow, this is like Cam of old. And then there were other games where they played good defenses like the Rams and the Broncos, and he looked awful. So as long as he doesn't have to do everything and be Superman like he was in Carolina, and he can just be like more so a manager and play to his strengths, and now you have playmakers who can get open and make plays, I think Cam can be successful with this team. And the way that I put it is, John, is like New England is arguably the most unique team in the league, the way that they are situated in terms of the way they want to play football. Like, because they're going to run a lot of two tight end sets. There's no other team that does that. They're a team with a just physical specimen at quarterback who's going to run the ball. They're a power running team with a huge offensive line. They have a defense who, to me, like we brought up the Giants, they're very similar in terms of their makeup. The Patriots defense was not long ago the best in the league, like 2 seasons ago. And they have a great secondary. They added guys like Matt Judon, Dante Hightower's coming back on defense. So they are going to have a very good defense, and they always have a good special teams. So they can really, like teams like the Bills, the teams like the Chiefs, they play versus those teams to their weaknesses. They can attack their weaknesses better than a lot of other teams. The question is, like, what's that quarterback going to be? That's really the question. Like, can Cam be consistent, or is it going to be Mac Jones? To me, it will be Cam the whole year, and then Mac Jones will take over after that. But yeah, I like the way the Patriots look on paper right now, and we'll just see how Belichick takes it to the field.
And we'll see how Mac Jones is in the future. He's kind of got
Yeah.
that Brady chip on his shoulder kind of thing. I know
Yeah.
he didn't get picked that late as far as Brady did, but I mean, he's got that little chip on his shoulder where it's like, man, I should have been picked higher, and I'm a national champion. I'm undefeated college quarterback. Come on.
Yeah. No, I love Mac Jones. I was so happy when they picked him. Like, I was jumping out of my chair. I know a lot of people weren't super high on Mac, mostly because of his, I think, physical traits. They don't pop off the screen. But I've never seen a college quarterback process information and be as smart as Mac Jones. And I think that's something that if you're going to transition from Tom Brady to the next guy, that's something you want. And he's accurate. He's deadly accurate. So he doesn't have to be Tom Brady, but if he can be, I'll take a Matt Ryan, okay? If he can be that, I'll be very, very happy. And he seems to have the right attitude, the right work ethic, and I think he's going to do well in New England, but I do think that this year, give him a year to sit behind a guy in Cam who's been around the NFL. He's won the MVP, he's been to a Super Bowl. He's a good leader. Belichick loves him. So I think Mac Jones can learn from Cam and then take over in the future.
We're talking about the Patriots. We just mentioned Tom Brady.
Yeah.
Man, losing him was huge for them. Obviously, it was just not looking good. Not as far as like, okay, the team isn't as good, but when the guy leaves, Tom Brady, and everyone's saying, was it Belichick? Was it Brady? Brady basically calls his own shot, wins the Super Bowl, kind of goes on the side of like, I guess Brady was carrying that team for a little bit. You know what I mean? It kind of just goes in that direction, but pretty amazing. 7 titles. He literally calls his own shot, put out a video, Eminem without me, saying he's going to win the title, saying, oh, by the way, I'm bringing my boy Gronk, and he's going to win another title. Oh, I want Antonio Brown because that's my boy. Leonard Fournette. Yeah, I want him. You know what I mean? He basically, he was like, I want this, and we're going to win. Pretty amazing.
It's amazing. Here's the thing, John, is like, I might get hate from, I guess, true Patriots fans or whatever. I was almost rooting for Tom Brady to leave. We talked about this before we got on air. Not because I'm not a Patriots fan. This is why. Every single Patriot hater, Brady hater, the only thing they could say at this point last year was he can't do it without Belichick. It's the only thing they could say. So, as a true Brady fan, I wanted to see him go somewhere and prove that it wasn't just, the Patriots system. Tom Brady's the system. Yeah. He leaves, he goes to another team, and he has success. He didn't have to win the Super Bowl, but have success. I think he picked a team in Tampa that was very underrated. Like, they had phenomenal talent, and they just needed a leader and a quarterback and a good quarterback to put that together. And then along with it, he brought some friends along. But I think he left at the right time because New England had to go through a little bit of a rebuilding year because they had no cap space, a lot of the whole COVID thing, and they didn't have the talent around him on offense. I don't think Brady is this guy anymore, which is why he's not like the best in the league anymore to me, but he's still one of the best, is he can make good players great or great players phenomenal, but I don't think he can make bad players good anymore. Like back in the day with Brady, it was like you could put anybody around him and they'd still win and still be good. But now it's like, okay, he would like to have a little bit more help. And I think we saw that in Tampa where if you just give him a little bit more help, he's putting up 40 touchdowns, 50 including the playoffs. So they're going to be great again this year, I think.
I just love that. It's like, Tom, who do you want on the team? Gronk, Brown, Fournette. Okay.
We
And
already got
then
Evans. We already got
yeah,
him.
yeah, you already have Mike Evans for Christ's sake, who's awesome. And the funny thing about him, he kind of was a decoy a little bit. He was injured for
Yeah.
most of the last part of that year, so just having him out there is kind of a threat, which is smart, obviously on the team's part. It's like, hey, you might get one catch this game, but you're going to cause probably a double team or at least a second look from the
Hmm.
safety or something. So that was kind of key too, to have Evans, who's good, Godwin, good. He had too many drops though, but still good player.
He had
Um,
broken fingers too. I mean, like
oh, okay,
Evans was hurt. Godwin was. That's why he had so many
all those
drops. Is
drops.
because he was wearing like a cast on his fingers. So two of his fingers were tied together. So he was trying to
Didn't
catch the
realize
ball.
that. Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
like that sort of. So Godwin was playing hurt and Evans was playing hurt, and hopefully they're healthy this season. I really want to see that Evans dynamic grow because we know how great he can be even independently of Brady, and I didn't think he was playing at his best last year because of those injuries, specifically to his hamstring, which hurt his speed. But like you said, he was a decoy, so the number one corner kind of had to guard him, so that makes everybody else have a better matchup out there. And then when you're talking about the Bucks, Tom Brady. Tom Brady was hurt.
Yeah.
Came out after the season. He had a hurt knee that he was playing with all year. So, I, they're going to be really good. Let's just say that. But Tom Brady was really good at his age, even with an injury, which is phenomenal.
And I loved it too because my buddy was saying who was going to win. It's like, I don't know. I think the Bucks are going to beat the Chiefs in the Super Bowl, but
Mm-hmm.
I go, I'm a little nervous because Mahomes can literally pull plays out of his ass, and you know what I mean. Tyreek Hill's the fastest guy in the league, so it's like, oh man, like what's going to happen here? But I said Shaq Barrett and JPP
Yeah.
somehow under the radar, underrated guys. No idea how, and they both completely dominated and took over the game.
Yeah, I remember because I actually, believe it or not, picked the Bucks to win the Super Bowl before the season started.
Whoa! Wow! Nice.
Yeah, I actually had them beating the Bills in the Super Bowl. I was close, but
Yep.
uh, it was more like I picked the Bills kind of like I was like I had the Chiefs in the AFC Championship. I was like I kind of want to mix it up here.
I
But
thought the Bills were going to beat the Chiefs too because when they played
yeah,
earlier in the year, I felt like they figured out the Chiefs a little bit that they could beat them when they played them
right.
again, and obviously that was not even close.
Yeah. Yeah, unfortunate for Jeff. But yeah, when you look at it, I think the Bucks, they were loaded coming into the year, and I felt like they would go through their bumps in the road, which kind of happened. But it was frustrating while you were watching it as somebody that was I adopted the Bucks as like my second team, right? So I was watching every snap and every play, which I try to watch for all teams, but it's kind of hard to do. So with the Bucks, it was like they were playing teams and losing, and I was like, if they just like they're so much more talented than these teams. Like they just gotta put together the game plan. Like I felt like the coaching was off, the chemistry between Brady and the receivers were off. They eventually got it on a roll at the end of the season, and then you started to see it kind of build on throughout the playoffs. Once you got to that Super Bowl, it was like everyone was sort of saying the Chiefs are favored. They're going to win because Andy Reid's going to figure it out and Patrick Mahomes is going to make plays. It's like, well, that's not actually like NFL analysis here. Like, can we
Yeah.
look at the actual matchups
Yes.
in terms of this game? That's the problem where people fall into the trap is like, well, where do the Chiefs can they actually attack and beat the Bucks? Not like Mahomes is just going to run around and throw the ball. Like, give me some reason. So when you actually looked at it logically, when you watch that game, it was like that is how like on paper this game would turn out. And it was one of those rare Super Bowls where on paper and the actual game was actually what happened, which a lot of the times that doesn't happen. So,
Right. Doesn't matter how good Mahomes is.
yeah.
His line was a little bit struggling. And even if he did have a healthy line, I don't know if you could go up against Sue, Barrett, and JPP and do well because it
Yeah.
just wasn't a good matchup for them. Like, okay, I want to have enough time to throw the ball. You're not going to have a lot of time to throw the ball. I mean, it's going
Yeah.
to, and Tyreek Hill's not going to be able to run deep patterns. And maybe you can dump it to Kelsey and that's fine, but you're not going to have your normal game plan against that team. Just
Mhm.
too good of a defense.
Yeah, their defense was phenomenal, especially when they got that big Vita Vea back.
Yes, him
He was
too.
really
Beast. Yep.
good versus the Packers. And then, well, we saw the same thing versus the Packers, which the Packers had one of the best offensive lines in the league. I know they lost David Bakhtiari, but they destroyed that offensive line in the NFC Championship on the road. And then they go to the Super Bowl, they're playing a bunch of backups. So it was even worse. But even versus a team like the Saints, they were, with Drew Brees barely dropping back to throw the ball deep, they were getting pressure on Drew Brees and causing problems. So that whole playoffs, they were really, the team that actually moved the ball best was the Washington football team with their
Hanky.
fourth string quarterback.
Yep.
Yeah.
XFLer. Yep.
Yeah. Pretty crazy.
Which was so weird too, because like that was kind of added. Like, okay, they're going to kill this guy. It's like, no, he played really well, and
He
Washington
played
actually
out of his
decent team.
mind.
Yep.
Yeah.
Skin's not that bad. They might be somebody to look out for. I know you like their receiver. I know that. I know he was on
Terry
your ranking.
McLaurin. Oh yeah. Did you watch that?
Who was number? Oh, Tyreek Hill. You had number one.
I have Tyreek Hill number one.
Surprised me a little bit.
Yeah, a lot of people have Devontae Adams. I think
I was going to say I would have picked him. Yep.
The reason for Hill is I think he is the biggest game changer in the league. I think at any skill position, his ability to score on literally any play that he touches the ball is so dynamic. And then just from a lot of the ways that I look at wide receivers is like from watching Bill Belichick's defenses all these years. It's like, what respect does Bill Belichick give this player? Right? When the Patriots play the Chiefs, they literally double team him on every play. And it's not like in a traditional way. It's like they put two players on him and they don't let him like go down the field. They make everyone else beat him. So to me, that just tells me that Bill Belichick thinks this player is that special, that he has to do this specific game plan to take this guy out of the game. Now, not to say that any other receiver isn't great. They are great in their own ways. But because of Tyreek Hill's speed, it's just such a difference maker to me. And that's not his only skill either. But that's just a skill that, in a way, kind of like Randy Moss, he can beat you down the field in a way that no other player can.
True. Yeah, you always got to double Hill. I know Kelsey is a beast. I'd rather him get 100 yards receiving than Hill getting 200 or whatever on 260-yard bombs. You know what I mean? He's dangerous.
Yeah. That changes the game, right? Like that's exactly what the Bucs did wrong in the first game.
Yep.
And they did right in the second game, is they said, okay, we're not going to worry so much about Kelsey. Like, if you're throwing the ball 5 yards to him, we're worried about Tyreek Hill. So that was a big difference for them.
The second, third, fourth quarter, and then the Super Bowl, those 7 quarters, they figured it out. That first quarter against the Chiefs was like, fuck. Like just complete meltdown.
And it was boneheaded, too. Like, you're like, why do you have this guy on an island? Like, no team in the league does this. I know that you think Carlton Davis is a good player. He's a good corner. But, like, to put him on an island versus this guy is not good. So
you can't do that. Yeah. With Tyreek Hill being your number one receiver, you had a couple surprises in there. You had Julio very high, right?
Julio's still in the top 6 for me. I think he's going to go to Tennessee and have a great year. For sure. He's one of the best of all time, in my opinion.
I'm trying to think of the guy from the 49ers that you like. Is it
Brandon Ayuk?
Ayuk, yep.
Yeah, I like Brandon Ayuk a lot. He's only been a rookie. He's only had a rookie season, but he is very, very dynamic, I think, in all aspects. I think what Kyle Shanahan has done there in San Francisco is great in terms of finding players that, because Kyle is so unique as a play caller, I think he's one of the best, and he can really get guys open. So he wants guys that can get the ball, and when they get the ball, they can make plays after the catch, and Brandon Ayuk is that type of guy. He's just very special in open space. He's almost like a bigger version of Deebo Samuel, and kind of like, I would say, faster as well. So he has a traditional sense of a traditional number one receiver with that Deebo Samuel mentality.
What about them getting Lance at QB? What do you think? If that's a project, or he's going to play right away?
Oh, man, it's tough because they're so good. Like, I know that they weren't good last year, but they're really
injuries,
talented.
A lot of injuries. Weren't they the most injured team in the league, I think, or up there?
Yeah, by far. I think it was them and Dallas who had like the most man games lost or whatever. But San Francisco, they're so talented. They won the Super Bowl 2 years ago, and I really think whoever the quarterback is, they're going to be successful, probably make the playoffs. But I think they'll start with Jimmy Garoppolo, and I wouldn't be surprised if it was almost like another Colin Kaepernick situation where it was like he kind of, because remember when Colin Kaepernick he didn't get a start at the beginning of the year, like he kind of like took over for Alex Smith like at the
Yep.
end of the season
Yep.
as the team was riding momentum. I could see that happening with Lance. I wasn't super high like on Lance. I actually thought they should have taken Mac Jones personally, which I thought was the rumor the whole time.
I
But
thought so too. That's why Mac was so pissed.
yeah. And I think the fit though with Lance, if it all goes well, is really good because Kyle's run game is awesome. And then if you combine that with Lance's ability to run, that just opens up another dimension of this team. And I do think the only reason they lost the Super Bowl was because Jimmy Garoppolo couldn't make the plays at the end of the game. So
Literally, you make one play, Garoppolo, or two plays,
yeah,
they would have won. It's just like, man, it's one of those things where I don't know. I think Garoppolo is good, but I don't know if he's
yeah.
that guy. Lance, I don't know, according to potential, could be that guy. He's a kind of a physical freak too, as
Yeah,
far as the quarterback.
he's a specimen. He's got a big arm. He can run fast. He's huge. He's kind of like that Josh Allen type of guy. I don't think he showed the prowess to throw the ball, but even Josh Allen took some time to get accurate with it. So we'll see. I think if you can just implement him to start running the ball 10 times a game and kind of make it easy on him throwing the ball, I think you'll have something.
What's going on with your boy Aaron Rodgers? What's going on with him?
First off, he's not really my boy. I'll say that. I mean, like a lot of people think I'm an Aaron Rodgers hater. And I don't necessarily think I'm an Aaron Rodgers hater. I just don't like when people compare Aaron Rodgers to Tom Brady. That's when I become an Aaron Rodgers hater. Okay, John. But
Yes.
overall, I think he's just frustrated in terms of the team hasn't been winning the way that he would like. Now I think it's kind of funny because I think he should have been complaining 5 years ago, to be honest with you, because that's when the team wasn't very good around him.
Right.
Now the team is really good. So
one of the best running backs, Aaron Jones, and then one of the best receivers, if not the best, and Devontae Adams.
yeah,
It's crazy. Now you're complaining? Like, what the hell?
they had 5 All-Pros last year. And when you look at, like, take rankings across the board, you said it. They have one of the top 10 running backs. They have arguably the best receiver. They have arguably the best left tackle. They had the best center in the league who left. They had arguably a top 3 corner in Alexander. They have great pass rushers. I mean, across the board, they have a very good team. So, like, I don't know where you're going to go. And they have a good coach. I don't know where you're going to go that's going to be a better situation than you have in Green Bay. So, I don't know what he is looking for because I honestly think he is going to play this year and then it's going to not end very well. And I don't really think it's because the team isn't good. I just don't think the situation is good. And I think that's going to blow up in their face. And then I feel he's going to leave and go to Denver. That's what I think is going to happen next year. And I think Denver, to me, I've said this a few times this offseason, if you watch the channel, is like, I think they're the Bucks of 2 years ago. Like, they're absolutely loaded, but they need a quarterback.
I could see that. Yeah. It's funny, like, when that happens, like, oh, they got all the talent. Most important position is QB still, no matter what. And you need to have a good quarterback, and Denver does not. And which is crazy. Elway, who is arguably, top 5 of all time, cannot figure out how to get a good quarterback in there.
Well, he got Peyton. I'll say that. I always defend John Elway in terms of his first few years because he was able to recruit Peyton Manning, and then once he got Peyton Manning, he put a heck of a team around him to win.
Best defense I've seen in a long time. Yep.
They were phenomenal defensively, and they brought in, they had Demaryius Thomas, they had Eric Decker, they had Emmanuel Sanders, they had Wes Welker, they had a great offensive line. They were a great team, and I always looked at them with, because New England was them in New England for those few years, who was going to go to the Super Bowl. That was a fun moment in the NFL, but I kind of miss Peyton. But I do defend John Elway for that because I do think that he was a huge reason they could have won 2 Super Bowls. They went to 2 of them. They got blown out in one of them, but
yep.
Yeah.
Hey, I always like Peyton's brother better. I'm an Eli
Yeah,
guy.
Eli. I mean, he's broken my heart a couple times. So
Yes. You got to love that. It's funny. A buddy of mine was saying, "Oh, Eli, oh, he stinks. He's overrated. All this stuff." I'm like, put it this way: Joe Namath, right? If you look at his career record, not
hmm
that good, but he beat the Colts. He made the prediction. He made the NFL.
yep.
He's a Hall of Famer. Eli beat the greatest team of all time, and he has two Super Bowl MVPs. I was like, yeah, he's easily a Hall of Famer, and he is an all-time great. That Patriots team that he beat,
Ugh.
arguably, if they went undefeated, would be known as the greatest team of all time.
Yeah.
Your favorite team of all
I
time.
honestly think they still are. Or I mean, I think at least it's up for debate that they were so like I've never seen a team. They're the only team in history that it literally looked like a video game. Like they
Yep.
were destroying teams. I remember a game they beat the Redskins. I guess I don't know if I can say that, but they beat Washington football team now.
Mm.
And they were a decent team. I think they were like 7-9, 8-8 or something like that. They beat them by like 50 something points. Like it was ludicrous the way they were beating teams. Like they beat the AFC Championship team, the Chargers, who were phenomenal. I mean, they had ridiculous talent. LT, Antonio Gates, and Phillip Rivers. And they beat them on Sunday Night Football 38-14. Like it was nothing. Like it was easy. They were beating good teams. In that era of the AFC, too, they were loaded. They had the Steelers with Ben and the Chargers, and they had the Colts with Peyton, and they had Ray Lewis's Ravens. And, I mean, they were loaded, and they were destroying teams. So that was a really fun year. That was probably the year for me because I was only like 12-ish. So I was pretty young. But that was the year that really made me like a die-hard NFL fan because I think that changed the NFL in a lot of ways. Changed offense
They really only had a couple tough games that year. The Ravens were tough that year,
on
and when
Monday
they played
night.
the Giants, one of the last games of the year,
Yeah.
that game was tough. So it's like Coughlin, he's got something figured out here. And it's funny too because
Yeah.
Belichick, even before the game, was like Justin Tuck is going to be a problem. Like so, they
Uh
knew going into it. I don't know. They knew he was going to play tackle instead of end, but they said Tuck's going to be
yeah.
a problem. So you got Humaniora, Strahan, and Tuck all going after Brady.
I always
He
say
was
I know
screwed.
you said Eli is the man. Tuck was the
Yeah, he
MVP
should have been
of
the MVP of the
both of
game.
those games.
Yep.
Both. I think especially the second one, to be honest, he was like ridiculous. Now that was a little bit different situation because I thought the Giants were just as good as the Patriots that year
Yeah, they were
going
even
into the
that year.
game. But the Patriots were such a big favorite in the first game. I honestly think what hurt them was they were undefeated, so they had so much pressure. And number two, I felt like you could kind of sense like I don't know if you remember this, but in the media days and stuff, like they were super cocky. Like Brady was sort of like uncharacteristically confident and like weird. Like I remember Plaxico Burress said the score would be like 2017 for the Giants. And then Brady laughed. He's like, we're only going to score 17 points. They ended up scoring 14 points.
Yeah.
Um, but
And
yeah, that
Burris
was a
makes the
weird
biggest
game
play in
too.
history of the Giants. Yes.
Yeah, it was
Crazy.
such a weird, crazy game with Tyree, and that was, of course, the marquee play, which was probably the craziest play ever.
Yep.
But there were a lot of other plays in there too, and even weird like calls. I remember the Patriots went for it on like 4th and 15, and they couldn't kick the field goal. Like there was weird things. Samuel dropped a pick, and
Yeah, I was
a
going to
lot of
say,
stuff.
yep, right on the sideline. Yep, he
Yeah, a
had a
lot
pick.
of stuff happened in that game where it just felt like it was the Giants' moment when it was unraveling. It was just like this one. Maybe they don't beat them 8 out of 10 times, but on this one day, the Giants were the better team and they were able to come out with the win.
Yep. I knew it was going to be close, but you figure the three-headed beast coming after Brady, you knew he
Yeah.
wasn't going to be able to set his feet all day. He was going to have a problem. And then in that second Super Bowl, Tuck forces I guess you
The
could say it's
safety.
safety, but he
Yeah.
obviously Brady just tossed it because he didn't want
Yeah.
to get taken out. But that was Tuck again. I mean, and it's funny, Belichick knew he's like, this he's a problem, and they couldn't figure him out for whatever reason because you couldn't really double him because then Humanior is free. I mean, and then
Yeah.
the second Super Bowl they had JPP, so I mean that was a problem.
Yeah,
Great
they had
team.
JPP basically instead of Strahan, right?
Yep.
So, yeah, the first one was Strahan, the second one was JPP. And I always look back at those Super Bowls as I think one guy that's now become crazy underrated who should be a Hall of Famer one day, is Wes Welker. Wes Welker, of course, had the infamous drop in the second game.
Yep.
He should have been the MVP of the first game. If the Patriots would have won that game, he had like 12 catches, which I think it might have been a record. He had over 100 yards. And he was a multiple time All-Pro, led the league in receptions, I think 3 times. Like, to me, he kind of redefined a position, the slot receiver position. I think he'll go on to be a Hall of Famer, but to me that's kind of a big moment, because it's weird that they won all these Super Bowls, but Welker was never actually on one of the teams that ended up winning one of them. And now Edelman's looked at as kind of like that guy, right? That clutch guy in comparison. But yeah, the Giants, that second game is the Patriots. I don't even know, like, they were so good on offense that year, and Brady was so good. Their defense was horrendous. They were like the worst defense, and it's funny that it was a low-scoring game in the Super Bowl. They were so bad that, like, I don't think a quarterback has ever taken that bad of a defense to the Super Bowl. They were ranked 31st in the league that year, and they went to the Super Bowl. But the thing that hurt them was Gronk had a broken ankle.
Yes. He could have made that catch. He's about not 2 feet, but he's probably about 5 inches taller. He would have probably made that catch, and that's who the ball would have went to.
Yeah, and he had 17 touchdowns that year. That was like the best tight end year of all time, and that's a big reason they went to the Super Bowl. And he broke his ankle the game before versus the Ravens, where they just squeaked away from the Ravens. But yeah, those Giants teams were always clutch. They beat Rodgers in Lambeau that year too.
Yep, killed him. Yep,
it killed him. Yeah.
I don't know. Rodgers sometimes in the playoffs goes into like this weird shell. Like, if you hit him, like the Giants. I mean, I remember OC hit him, and then the next time he was kind of got into like a shell, and then they strip sacked him. Like, he had a guy open, and they strip sacked him because he kind of went into a shell. I don't know. He's a weird one. It's like, when people compare, you could say 7 titles to 1 title when you compare him and Brady, but to me, it's watch the game. It's like Brady is so like elevates his level. I don't know. Rodgers almost from like regular season always goes down.
The way I describe it is like, it's like a mental toughness thing. It's like a composure. Brady is the best of all time because of his mental toughness more than anything. Because, of course, just look at the comebacks that he's had on the biggest stages. But Aaron Rodgers, it's almost the opposite. Like, he has all the gifts in the world. And some people say, like, he's the best of all time because of those gifts, right? Fair enough. But he's not the greatest because every time, like, a lot of the times, he doesn't have a lot of comebacks. Like, if you actually just look at most comebacks of all time, and I think that's part of the mental toughness of, he's sort of a momentum guy. So, like, when it's building at the beginning of the game, he's unbelievable, he's unstoppable. But even when you saw, like, this year, the Bucs game in the NFC Championship, right? And especially the earlier Bucs game, like, he just kind of folded. The 49ers game a couple years ago, he kind of folded. Like, if you get down, if you get in his face and things aren't going his way, it almost feels like he's incapable of kind of rising to the occasion and leading the team.
It was weird too. You remember when they went for 2 against the Bucs, and the Buck literally just got his finger on it, and the guy ended up dropping it?
Yeah,
it was weird. His whole, like, I don't know, everything. Yeah, his demeanor, everything wasn't like, all right, let's get him, whatever. It was just like, there goes this game. Like, he was like devastated. Not good for a starting QB. Not that he's not great, but it's just a weird attitude to have. He definitely is a momentum guy.
Yeah, that's the thing where I always disagree with people, where it's like, oh, if Rodgers was on the Patriots, they would have won this many Super Bowls. It's like, okay, no, like, no, like, I don't, all the hypotheticals, and that's why I get labeled as a Rodgers hater. But it's like, I don't think, especially with the way that Rodgers has gotten along with certain coaches and things, I don't know if he would have gotten along with Belichick.
Definitely not.
I really don't, because I don't think I don't know the guy, but it just feels like the ego of Aaron Rodgers is, it's fair. Like, he's a great player. He wants certain things, but Tom Brady was able to set that ego aside and get ripped in the meeting rooms when he's Tom Brady. right? Like,
Yep.
I don't think most coaches would be like to their Hall of Fame best of all time. Like Tom, the Boston High quarterback could throw a better pass than this, So I think with Aaron Rodgers, he's a funny one because I love watching him play because he's such a dynamic and special talent. But also, you have to realize that all quarterbacks have their faults, and it just so happens that kind of Rodgers, I feel like it's always been mental with him.
Now, I don't think also Seattle Super Bowl down 10. I don't see him coming back scoring 2 touchdowns. You know what I mean? Like Brady
Right.
did, where it's like, okay, we're getting beat up this whole game. We don't look that good. Brady, mental toughness is like, no, I have it figured out. We're going to go down. We're going to score 2 touchdowns. We're going to win this damn thing. Obviously,
Yeah.
Malcolm Butler saves the day all the way at the end. But to even get to that point was all Brady in that fourth quarter.
That was the craziest. That's my favorite game of all time, probably, or at least one of them. And the play people forget in that game is
I
the
think
Jermaine Curse catch.
I was going to say that was first of all bullshit, but lucky as hell. Like, how the hell did
Like,
that even happen?
but imagine the headspace of I'm scarred, okay? Because I've seen David Tyree, I've seen Mario Manningham,
Yep,
and now we got Jermaine Curse kicking the ball to himself.
that was
I'm like, are
insane.
you kidding me? So that is why that is probably the greatest, even more so than the Atlanta game, because for a Patriots fan, even though we won those 3 Super Bowls earlier in the 2000s, I was pretty young. I watched the games, but I was pretty young, so I couldn't really fully like grasp it. When we got to 2014, we had gone through all these years of we're always in the playoffs, we're always good, but we always lose. And then we get to the Super Bowl, and that play happens like, oh, it's gonna happen again. And then all of a sudden, the Malcolm Butler, that's the greatest switch of momentum and result, I think, in sports history, where it's just elation of feeling that you're going to win now. Like, so yeah, that's a crazy game.
That was crazy. Like, oh, why is Belichick not calling for timeout? Why isn't he
Yeah.
calling timeout? Then all of a sudden, Butler knew what they were going to run. I guess at the interview afterwards, he's like, I knew what they were doing.
Yeah.
So he obviously cut it off. He actually ran the route for the receiver and picked up. Man, that was awesome. What a change of momentum. But they shouldn't even have been down there. That curse catch
No.
was insanely lucky.
Yeah.
But as we head towards the finish, head towards the wind down here, I can talk to you about football all day, and maybe we will one day. But
Yeah.
as far as the juke, what's with Dr. Jen? What's going on the latest? What do we have to look forward to?
So we talked the other day, just yesterday, about kind of the future or the plans of the show and what we want to do. And I think our plans for coming up, we want to get some good guests on. We don't exactly know who they're going to be, but some pretty big names in the realm of the NFL and football in general. And we're going to be doing some big interviews and kind of like kickoff show type vibe for the NFL. So we're really working on that. Now, if you don't know what the Juke's about, every Wednesday we are live on Twitch, Dr. Jen Welter on Twitch. You can also find some clips on my channel, The Bottom Line View, if you're just interested in seeing, what's, a quick 10 minutes or a quick 5 minutes about, then you could check it out for yourself. But yeah, so it's been a lot of fun just to talk to somebody, professional in the space, because I've never really had that ability before of understanding what it's like as a coach and understanding what it's like in the locker rooms. And that's kind of the vibe you get from Jen. She likes to keep it fun. She likes to keep it, she always says to me, like, we don't want to be like every other NFL show. We want to keep it like more fun and more accessible to an audience that isn't necessarily into like all of the X's and O's and things. And it's nice to have that vibe from somebody that is so involved as a football person. So that's kind of what we look to do. It's also been pretty cool to, interview some people that I like was watching on TV, like a Matt Leinart or guys like that who we have interviewed. So we're definitely going to be doing that moving forward, and we're really excited for this upcoming season.
And hopefully with Russo brand and Realm, you do a fantasy football show. Man, that's the only sport
Yeah.
that I really care about as far as really any
Fantasy.
care about anyway, but fantasy football I love. And I'm always kind of curious because those fantasy shows, I want them to write down to the, like, who should I, not only who should I pick, who should I play this week? I got this option,
Yeah,
this
yeah,
option.
yeah, yeah.
Who should I play? You know what I mean? They always kind of beat around the bush and, oh, this guy, but his numbers here. No, who should I play? I want to know more, fantasy football, hard information because some of those
Right.
shows kind of skirt around to try to always sound correct. You know what I mean? I want
That's
some
the
hard, fast.
problem.
Yeah.
You gotta just leave your opinion out. If you're wrong, you gotta be a man and stand up for yourself. It's the same thing I think with like gambling or betting advice as well. It's like, this is my opinion. Now you don't gotta agree. You don't gotta bet. I didn't say go bet on this game, but this is your opinion. This is my opinion on what you can do and what I think I'm gonna do. And the same thing is for fantasy. It's like, I think you should pick this player because I'm gonna pick this player.
Right. Now, where can everybody find the Juke, BLV, and everything else you got going on?
Yeah, so the Juke, you could find it in a lot of different places in terms of social media. You could give us a follow at the Juke Pod on Twitter and Instagram. You can find us every Wednesday live on Twitch at Dr. Jen Welter. Just search up her name, even on Google, and it will pop up. First thing that pops up is Twitch. And then you can find the Bottom Line View. Myself on Instagram, we are at TheBottomLineView. You can follow me at Mitch Milani. And then, of course, on YouTube, just search The Bottom Line View or Bottom Line View, and it will pop up. But NFL content, looking to really pump some things up for The Bottom Line View coming up before the season.
Nice. Before we let you go, give us one player to look out for this season that we should probably pick. Doesn't have to be too obscure,
Fantasy?
but somebody. Yeah, fantasy wise, who should we look out for?
Okay. One player you should look out for is Los Angeles Rams running back Cam Akers. That is somebody that I think is going to get a lot of hype heading into the season. I think the Rams will have a very good offense. I love Matthew Stafford. I love Sean McVay. And I think that offense is going to score a lot of points. But the nucleus of it always has been the run game for McVay, and I don't think that will change. I think Akers is the new Todd Gurley for his offense, so he's going to put up a lot of points.
Nice. Good stuff, Mitch. Thank you, as always. I appreciate all the time today.
Yeah, thank you, John. Appreciate it.